Hey, in this video, I talk in detail about the game 1980X. I encourage you to play it yourself before watching. 1980X is the story of Kid, and Kid is looking for something.
These days, I guess I was just looking for anything that could make my heart skip a beat again.
The truth is, I've been looking for that too lately. I find this moment in time so relentlessly infuriating and horrifying that after a while I grow numb to it all. I feel like I lose touch with my own humanity a little bit. I think that one of the most valuable things art can do is rehumanize us in dehumanizing times. And in 1980X, I found a game that made my heart skip a beat again. As it turns out, Kid finds what they're looking for in the video games at a local arcade. And like Kid, like a lot of people, I'm sure, I understand very well how it is that these games become so meaningful for them. When I was a kid myself, I could use my imagination to turn even a simple, tedious game like Capcom's Run and Gun Commando, which for some reason was one of the few NES games we owned, into a meaningful, symbolic struggle against the chaos and fear in my own life. Sometimes, perhaps taking a cue from The Last Starfighter, in which an arcade game was actually a test program to find a fighter pilot capable of winning an alien war, I imagined that whatever game I was playing opened a portal to another world, where I could be the hero that the people of that realm needed. Like me, Kid is an expert at finding deeper meaning in the space between themselves and the games they play. I think a lot of young people in the 80s and 90s did this sort of thing, particularly those of us who were trying to escape from scary or painful things in other parts of our lives. It's clear that this is what Kid is doing. During one of the game's many gorgeous pixel art interludes, Kid reminisces about how they used to frequent a nearby video store with their father.
He'd be looking for classics, while I was more into superheroes. Oh man, we could go on forever. But then, we didn't go there anymore. It was no big deal.
Obviously, there's some undefined strife that's tearing Kid's family apart, and though Kid is trying to hold it together and put up a front, that line, "it was no big deal," reveals what a big deal it really was. When you start 1980X, you're thrown immediately into Kid's experience as a player. The first thing you see is an intro sequence and title screen for Beating Heart, a beat-em-up released in the year 1980X. You hear the sound of a quarter sliding into the machine, and then it begins. You're playing, controlling a brawler in a red hoodie, Kid's signature color, clobbering an assortment of punks who are out to stop you for reasons that are never explained. They don't need to be. Kid feels antagonized by the world, fighting just to survive. That's why the act of defeating the people who stand in Kid's way is meaningful. I've seen some say they wish the game was more explicit, that things were more fleshed out, but I think that if it didn't let the games that Kid plays within it make their own kind of meaning within the context of Kid's life, it would undercut its own effectiveness. To me, 1980X is a game about how games can mean more to us than others might expect or understand, and that experience can be very personal. Unlike so many pixel art games that simply want to replicate and capitalize on our memories, 1980X is interested in exploring just what our experiences with the games of the past may have meant to us. Stories in games back then were routinely disposable, but that doesn't mean that the games themselves didn't mean anything. They did. Through their imagery and music and the way they made us feel, they took on all kinds of meaning. After you play Beating Heart for several minutes, making your way out of a subway station and onto a city street, something surprising happens. Something that would never happen in an actual beat-em-up of the era. The camera pans up and away from our hooded hero to take in an unreachable skyline in the distance. Beating Heart fades out, and it's only then that we first see Kid, alone in their room in their suburban home, a city on the horizon representing all the freedom and possibility that Kid dreams of. but it may as well be a million miles away for all the good it does them. Unable to achieve that kind of escape, Kid finds a different kind at the local arcade, telling us,
In front of these machines stood some of the coolest, uncool people I had ever seen. They were the freaks, the geeks, the misfits, the outcasts, the real rebels. Part of something the outside world could not understand, or even knew existed.
sure, it's grandiose. You could even call it cheesy. I don't care. Right now, I have no patience for irony. Give me something earnest, sincere, and open-hearted. Kid may be emotionally guarded, but Maya Tuttle's brilliant voice acting strikes a remarkable balance, never crossing over into sounding bitter or cynical. Kid is still genuine, bravely so, in fact, and because of this, they're still open to being reached and deeply affected by the games they play. In my own loneliness and fear, I sometimes find myself giving in to bitterness and cynicism, because after a while, it's much easier to be angry at the world than to stay open to it even as your heart is aching. I find Kid's ability to stay vulnerable perhaps the most compelling thing about them as a protagonist. 1980X wears its heart on its sleeve, and I am so here for it. A bit later, we learn that Kid has a crush on a girl at their high school.
This punk rocker from the Southern District. She was the wildest thing I'd ever seen. Oh man, that girl was born a rebel. Free to go wherever she wanted to. Free in a way I could still only dream of.
Just as the girl in black peels out of the high school parking lot in her black sports car, leaving Kid quite literally in the dust, we're presented with the title screen of 1980X's driving game, The Runaway, which begins with a black sports car speeding off into the distance, leaving Kid's car, your car, a red sports car in the foreground, pursuing the driver of the black car and the freedom that she represents. The Runaway's most direct reference point is probably Sega's 1986 racer Outrun, one of the best games of all time, as I talk about in another video, but Outrun offers an escape. In The Runaway, Kid can't quite get away from reality. You make your way from a barren desert to the outskirts of a city, and Kid begins to speak, completely blurring the already thin lines between their real life and their experiences with the games at the arcade.
But nothing could beat the rush of the highway. The speeding cars reminding me that there was a way out. A road to somewhere. The city on the horizon. I'd drive all night to get to that place.
The first time I heard that guitar come in, screaming above the ambient synth soundscape, an expression of Kid's yearning desire to escape from the pain in their life, it sent a shiver down my spine. Soon after that, you make it to a bridge, speeding past highway signs that indicate you're getting closer and closer to the city, as Kid talks about how the games at the arcade have changed their life.
Down here, I was free. I was in control. No one told me where to go or what to do. The only bad part about it was having to come back up to the real world.
All the other cars speed on, bound for the city, but for you, it remains out of reach. And isn't that just how it feels sometimes? Like there are freedoms that others enjoy that elude you no matter what? It is for me anyway. The final game Kid plays in 1980X is called Kill Screen. It's a rudimentary first-person sci-fi RPG of sorts, and while it has no analog in the actual arcade games of the 1980s as far as I'm aware, that doesn't really matter. 1980X is an emotional journey, not a historical one. In Kill Screen, you must slay 3 dragons, all the while taunted by an artificial intelligence known as Motherboard, clearly a stand-in for Kid's own mother, or at least for the ways in which Kid has come to see their mother as a symbol for all the ways in which they're trapped. Now, we don't know much about what's going on between Kid and their mother. We get one evocative image of them at home together, an image that suggests to me a vast emotional gulf that's opened between them. And Motherboard's taunts only made me feel this distance more acutely. Now, you may have noticed that throughout this video, I've used the pronoun they for Kid. The game never uses a third-person pronoun for them at all. Kid's voice is the only voice we hear, and they tell us their story in the first person. So, maybe what I'm about to tell you is just me being optimistic, seeing what I wanted to see in 1980X. And if that's the case, that's fine, because again, 1980X is all about the experience of finding our own meaning in the games we play. But I felt, playing the game, that Kid might be trans or gender nonconforming. I felt like the game was intentionally creating space for that interpretation. I felt like that was part of why Kid felt so isolated, and like that was part of what was making things so difficult between them and their mother. So when Motherboard says, yes, it's a Zelda 2 reference, of course, but it also expresses how I often felt in the world as a young person, and how I imagine Kid does as well. Or perhaps how Kid's mom might feel if she doesn't understand and doesn't like what's happening with her child. It's not simple, though. Motherboard isn't just evil. At a certain point, she starts repeating, and I felt that Kid's mom was almost certainly hurting in her own way, unsure of how to connect with her child, the two of them talking past each other, neither one sure how to close the gap. What does Kid's confrontation with Motherboard actually mean? Where does Kid go from here? I don't know, and I'm glad the game doesn't try to spell it out. All I know is that there are still possibilities in Kid's life, just as there are still possibilities in mine, and that games can mean something valuable and real, even when the world feels like it's falling apart. I don't expect 1980X to work on everybody the way it worked on me. After all, again, it's a game about how deeply personal our experiences with games can be, how games can take on larger meanings in the context of what's happening in our own lives. We take our life experiences into the games with us, and we take the meaning we find in that space between ourselves and the games we play back into our lives. 1980X doesn't just understand that, it captures what it is to find the kind of meaning you so desperately need in a game, right when you so desperately need it. And God, do I need it right now. This is one of the best games of the year.